Hello, this is for the Uil calculator videos. We're going to solve the first 10 problems in the packet that I provided for the students. So let's go ahead and get started and see what we're going to do here. You're going to learn how to set the calculators to the proper mode, how to write the answer in the correct format for the test, and how to properly input problems to calculator, learn new formulas to solve word problems. Now what I have here is more or less the same calculator that you're going to have in the UIL that I already provided for you from the classroom. The on button is located on the bottom left hand corner. You want to push that button there, and right away right here where it says mode on top, you want to click on mode. When you click on mode there, you have this little screen that pops up. You have a bunch of options here. The options that we're most concerned about are the where it says normal setting. You want scientific, so you use these arrows to go ahead and scroll up or down, left or right. You put it on scientific and push enter. Then you want to scroll down real quick where it says float. Where it says float, you want to scoot over to the right to the number 2. That'll tell you automatically that it wants to do the decimal to the hundredths place, so that way you won't have to be rounding off in your head. The calculator will automatically already be rounding for you. So go ahead and push enter there. And if you haven't done so already, make sure your calculator is on radian. And the rest of it's pretty much go ahead and leave it as is. And we're just worried about the scientific mode where it says float. You want number 2 and to put it on radian. After you click enter, go ahead and push clear, and your calculator should be ready to go. All your answers will be to the hundredths place, and we already set the setting for the calculator for that. The calculator right here, this little example, has 7.50 E1. The E stands for exponent, and that's something that if you're a 6th grader, you'll probably learn that towards the end of the year or in 7th and 8th grade. If you're a 7th and 8th grader, you should know what an exponent is already. In the test, you'll have to write it in a little different way. Your calculator shows it as, like I said, 7.50 E1, but the E, we're going to change it to times 10, and the 1 at the end is going to be your exponent after the 10. So we're not going to write it, we're not going to have the 1 written right after the 0, because then it's going to look like 101. We need to put that exponent just as I show it here, because if you write on the test, and on the test you put it showing it looks more of 101, we're going to count the answer wrong when we grade your test at the competition. So always make sure that the E change it to times 10, and the whatever numbers in back of the E, in this case it's a 1, we need to show it as the exponent 1, a little number to the top corner of the 10. Now the first problem here we have, the first 3 are pretty straightforward. We want to go ahead and enter those easy problems in the calculator as such. So the first question here, we have parentheses. This is where your parentheses are in the calculator. Your calculator might be a little bit different, but usually they're all the same. So we're going to have negative in calculators, and regular math. I always tell you in class that the 0 is very important for the numbers that we write in math. But since we're using the calculator, the rule changes a little bit differently. So we don't need the 0 when we put in the calculator. 0.25 or negative 0.25 rather is the same as negative 0.25. So we don't have to put the 0 there. So to save time, we can just put negative 0.25 plus 1.45. Okay? So then I'm going to close the parentheses there. Then I want to go ahead and put the multiply sign, and then in here we have another 0.488, but I'm not going to worry about the 0, so to save time I don't have to put it, so I'm just going to put 0.488. Now obviously if there was another number instead of that 0 there, like a 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, 100 or 1,000, we would have to put that number there. Okay, in this case it's a 0, so we're not going to worry about the 0. So when I push enter on my calculator, my settings that I already put already round it to the hundredths place and give me the scientific number. Alright, we have it in scientific mode. So here I'm going to check if my answer is correct. and it's 5.86 times 10. I changed the e here to times 10, and then the negative 1. My exponent, you see how I didn't put the minus 1 right in back of the 0 to make it look like 10 minus 1? I put it as a little number on the top corner of the 10. That's called the exponent again, as a negative 1. My negative 1 shows here on the calculator, so I have to put a negative 1 over here. Oh, I gave you the answer for the second one already. That's fine. We can go ahead and do the second one on the calculator. It's pretty straightforward here. There's nothing complicated about this one. We're gonna put it in as such. So we have the parentheses. I don't need the zero, so it's 0.539 plus 0.183 minus 0.0802 close parentheses times 0.222. When I hit enter there, I get 1.42 e to the negative 1. Now it's not always going to be negative 1. In this case, it just so happens the first two answers had negative 1 in it. So again, I changed the e to a times 10, and my exponent is negative 1. So I write it on the top corner of the 10, and it's a negative 1 there. Number 3, we do have this slash here. That slash stands for dividing. Alright, so we can see it in multiple ways. We can see it in the dividing the slash here, or we can see it as a division form on example 4 or number 4. So on number 3, we're going to put it in as such also, because it's not that complicated. But I do want to mention that the numerator, you see the parentheses around the entire numerator. In math, when we're dividing numbers, especially when we have more than one number on the numerator or on the denominator, we want to make sure that all the numerator is solved on top first, then the denominator. And I'll go into that in example for a little bit more. But for number 3, let's put it in. We have parentheses 2.74 minus 1.4 plus 1.63 plus 0.83 close parentheses divided by open parentheses negative 6.11 close parentheses. When I click enter, my answer here should be negative 6.22 times 10 to the negative 1. Now we have 3 answers in a row that have the exponent to negative 1. Again, it's not always going to be negative 1, so just be cautious, be careful on what your exponent is, because it won't always be the same one. But I'm going to repeat myself again, because I can't repeat myself enough with this. I had students, or I graded students' papers in years past that they all put the E. We're going to count it wrong if you put the E here. We need to see that negative 10. Instead of the letter E, we need to see that negative, we see that times 10. We need to see that times 10, and then your exponent is negative 1, so you write it as negative 1. On number 4 here, like I mentioned earlier, we want to go ahead and solve everything on the numerator first and then the denominator second. Reason being because in math, everything solves from left to right. So if we solve this from left to right, the calculator is going to say, if we put in the calculator, and I'm going to go ahead and put it the wrong way right now, I'm going to have open parentheses 0.072 close open negative 0.0166 minus 0.0103 plus 0.031 close parentheses, and instead of I'm going to go straight to dividing, open parentheses negative 0.0894 close parentheses open negative 0.0411 close. Now when I click enter here, my answer is 1.35 e to the negative 4, but my answer should be 8.03 times 10 to the negative 2. So my answer right here is wrong, and the reason that is because when I come up to my equation that I put here, I just copied it down. When I come up to my equation I put here, I want you to notice the red parentheses that I put here. The equation before the red parentheses, when I put this in the calculator is going to do what you tell it to do. So I told the calculator to multiply this number with the answer for this, everything in the parentheses here, and then it went to divide by this number, this 0.0894, the negative 0.0894. So it gave me, it multiplied this, the sum of this, and divided by this number. That's not how we're supposed to do it in math. When we do it by hand, I have to solve everything on the top first, solve everything on the denominator second, and then divide by the answer on the numerator with the denominator. So in order to do that, what we have to do is mentally, because we cannot write on our paper while we're doing the calculator test. Everything has to be done in the calculator, but mentally I have to tell myself everything needs to be solved on the top and everything needs to be solved on the bottom. That's why I just said that I'll get one answer for my numerator, one answer for my denominator, and then it will give me the correct answer here. So let me go ahead again and let's see if it would actually let me. I put two parentheses, and mentally, well, let me enter it from scratch. Mentally, I put, in my mind, I'm telling myself I need those two parentheses on top. So that red parenthesis was not there, but in my mind I still need two parentheses, 0.072, close, open, negative 0.0166 minus 0.0103 plus 0.031, and I do have that black parenthesis to close it, but I have, in my mind, I'm telling myself I need to solve everything on top, so close the top also. Then I have my dividing sign. Then mentally I'm telling myself I need an extra pair of parentheses to tell the calculator I want you to solve everything on the bottom first before you divide. So I need two parentheses, then negative 0.0894, close, open, negative 0.0411, close, close, because I have the black and then the red. And then when I click enter here, my answer should be 8.03 times 10. Again, change the e to times 10, and my exponent now is negative 2. So my exponent here, my answer is negative 2. Okay? So, again, you cannot write on your test when you're taking the UIL test. All you have to do is tell yourself mentally, I need to solve everything on the top, solve everything on the bottom. So you know mentally you're going to need an extra pair of parentheses. On number 5, it's more or less the same thing, well, almost the same thing as number 4. The only difference here is that they already added that brackets. So in the calculator, we don't need exactly that bracket. We can put it as parentheses, but we don't need an extra set of parentheses on the bottom because the calculator is already going to solve the bottom before it divides. Okay, so what I can put are the parentheses on top. You won't need them, but I can go ahead and put them because it'll be good practice anyway. And the answer should be 2.51 times 10 to the negative 2. Now, let's go ahead and put this. I have two parentheses, negative 0.00133 minus 3.66 times 10, and it has an exponent of negative 4 here, okay? So on your calculator, we're going to have a little caret that's pointing up. You click on the caret, and I'm going to put negative 4. And if your cursor stays on top next to the exponent, make sure to push the right arrow to make the cursor come back down. If not, you'll continue to write in the exponent area. So when I come back down, you see here, I need to close the parentheses, then open again, 30.6, close the parenthesis, and close the parenthesis again. Then I'm going to divide. And the calculator, I'm going to put double parenthesis because there's a bracket, but I'm going to put a parenthesis anyway. negative 91.3 close divide by open 58.3 close close because there's a parenthesis and then the bracket. Then I need to continue on this side minus open 0.0339 minus 0.0259 close, and when I hit enter I should get 2.51 change to e to times 10, and my exponent here is negative 2. Okay? Alright, now the next one is the word problem. We'd usually I tell the students to go ahead and attempt the word problem if you can. Uh, there won't be the same word problems that we're practicing now, but they should be more along the same idea, okay, the same concept. Again, you can't write anything down. You have to do it all in the calculator, all mental math. To solve number 6, we need to go ahead and Uma buys a book for $15.75. After paying 8.125% in tax, how much change does she receive from a $20 bill? So the first thing you need to know is we cannot, well, to figure this problem out, right off the bat, we need to multiply 15.75 with percent. So it's 8.125% to figure out how much taxes we need to add to the price of the book. Because when you go to the store and buy a bag of chips that's cost 99 cents, you don't pay 99 cents. You pay like $1.07 because they just charge you taxes. Same thing here with the book. They always charge you tax for everything, okay? So with here, we cannot multiply by a percent, so we need to change it to a decimal. The way we change it to a decimal, we use something called Dr. Pepper in school. If you have a percent and I want a decimal, I need to move the decimal that's in there 2 places to the left. And I always move 2 spaces. It doesn't matter if I'm going from decimal to percent or percent to decimal, I'm always going to move 2 spaces. So if I move 2 spaces here, and I put my decimal there, I have an empty space, so I add a 0. Now that I changed it to a decimal, this percent goes away. So we don't need it anymore, okay? Now, she ends up paying with a $20 bill. So in my calculator, I want to go ahead and put all this together in my calculator because it's going to be tricky going back and forth with everything. So in my calculator, I'm going to put, she pays with a $20 bill. I need to subtract that with 15.75, but that 50.75, I need to add the taxes, which is 15.75 times 0.08125, and close the parentheses there. So if you see what I did here, I'm going to go over it real quick. $20 minus my total that they're going to charge me for the book, because $20 is what I'm paying with. I need to find out the total they're charging me. So it's 15.75 is the price of the book, and I need to add the taxes. And to get the taxes, I need to multiply the price of the book times the decimal. So when I hit enter, my change should be $2.97. Now you have to be very careful. Here they're not asking for an exponent, so my answer, they're asking for money. So we don't write scientific notation for money. We just write it in decimal or regular numbers. So it's just $2.97. The next one is a circular field occupies 6 acres. What is the radius? So right away, there's a couple of things you need to know here. The area, let me go ahead and make that bigger. Excuse me. The area, whoopsie, of a circle is equal to pi r square. Okay, so if I have a whole circle here and the area is equal to 6 acres, Well, I need to find out how much square feet that is. So in my mind, I have to know, or I have to remember that 1 acre is equal to 43,560 square feet. But that's only in 1 acre. How many acres do I have? 6. So in my calculator, I have to go ahead and put 6 times 43,560. Enter. So I have a total of 2.61 e to the 5 square feet in that circle. Okay. Another thing you have to remember is what pi is. In your calculator, pi right here in my calculator is a little blue dot. So pi is very simple to input. Just hit second and that little symbol there. If it's blue, you push the blue button first and then click on whatever you need. If it's a green, like for example the green letters, you have to click on the green button first and then it'll give you whatever letter you need. Okay. Now, for my formula here, I have the area. I know what pi is, but we're looking for the radius. Now, a quick lesson is pretty much the opposite of everything, okay? How do you get rid of a positive? Well, you put a negative. How do you get rid of a multiplying sign, a multiplication? Well, that's division. In this case, I'm going to show you real quick, just in a nutshell, to get rid of, this is supposed to be a number, or hashtag, a number, to get rid of the exponent of a number, to get rid of that, you have to put the square root. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put everything that I have here. Right now I have my area as 2.61 e to the 5. Okay? So it's 2.61 e to the 5 is equal to pi r square. Well, I need to get R by itself. Okay, think of somebody stole your Xbox or PS3 and they were wearing a mask that had an R on it. You want to find out what that number is. Okay, you want to find out who took your Xbox or PS3 or whatever. So, right here, what's going on between these two numbers? What's going on is that they're being multiplied. All right? So, I have to get R by itself, so I have to start with dividing. I'm doing the opposite of what's going on here. I'm going to divide by pi. When I divide by pi on one side, I have to divide it on the other side as well. Okay? What happens here is these cancel out. And when I say cancel out is what's 2 divided by 2? It's just 1. What's 5 divided by 5? 1. What's pi divided by pi? 1. Okay? So if I have just 1 here, what is 1 times any number? It's going to be that number. For example, what's 1 times 7? It's 7. What's 1 times a million? It's going to be a million. So if I have a 1 here, 1 times r is going to be r. So we don't need this 1. Okay? So what we have here now is 2.61, and I'm going to go ahead and erase this already because it no longer exists because we canceled it out. So all we're left with is r squared. But we need r by itself, but there's that pesky little square there. All right? So how do we get rid of an exponent? We need the square root. So if I add the square root here, what I do to one side, let me go ahead and switch colors there. I'll put it brown. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. So this square root cancels that exponent out, and when that happens, it goes away, and all I'm left with is r. So in my calculator, I'm going to put here the square root. The square root symbol here looks like this on my calculator. It's going to be second and the button that has a square root symbol. And here I need to put 2.61 e to the 5. I don't want to type it, so I'm just going to hit enter here. But I'm going to divide that by pi. Pi is right here with my little caret. And when I hit enter, I should get 2.88 e to the second, or e2. So here, 2.88 times 10, because e changed the e to times 10 to the second. Number 8, number 8 is a little lengthy, but we can go ahead and go over it very quickly. On number 8, we're talking about more or less proportions here. So the birth rate was 14.16 for every 1,000 people. Okay, the death rate was 8.26 for every 1,000 people. And in 2006, and it all happened in 2006, in 2006 the population started with 3 million people. So the population started with 3 million. I'm sorry, 300 million. So what happens here is that it wants to know the difference of both of these to get the annual increase at the end of the year. So what I have to do in my calculator is, if you've already taken in 6th grade, we haven't covered this for proportions. We're about to get into it. In 7th and 8th grade, you should already cover proportions here. But what I'm going to do here is multiply across. So I'm going to multiply these numbers here, and then I'm going to divide with the number that's left over. So in other words, I'm going to put 14.16 times 300 million equals, and then divide that with 1,000, and I get 4.25 e to the 6th. The second part to this problem is doing the same thing with the death rate. So again, I'm going to cross multiply these numbers, and I am going to divide by the number that's outside. So I have 8.26 times 300 million. Enter. Divide that with 1,000. I get 2.48 e to the 6th. I want to subtract the 2. So keep on pushing up, and it should get you to the answer here. For the birth rate minus the death rate. And when you hit enter, you should get 1.77 times 10 to the 6. 1.77 times 10 to the 6th power. Okay? Now, number 9 is pretty kind of number 7 in a way, because we're both talking about the area. The area is, again, pi r squared. It wants to know the area of the circle. So this one's pretty simple. I know it gives us pi, so in my calculator I'm going to hit second pi. Then when they're next to each other, of course we're multiplying. That's what the little star right here is for. So times r. So what's my radius? My radius is 0.0706. And my exponent is squared, because that's the other part of the radius for the formula. When I hit enter, I should get 1.57 times 10 to the negative 2. So 1.57 e to the negative 2. So I changed the e to the times 10, and we're good to go. On number 10, it's a parallelogram. So the formula to figure out the perimeter is we can add all the sides, or we can use the formula 2 times the length plus the width. Alright, so we can just put 4.94 times 2, because there's 2 sides, 4.94 and 4.94, and 7.1 times 2, and then I can just scroll up and put enter, add the sides with the other sides, and you get 2.41 times 10 to the first power. And of course, change the e to the times 10. If you use the formula, it's the same thing. You're going to put 2 times the length plus the width, so 4.94 plus 7.1, and you get the same thing. So you can either add the numbers all the way around. This one you can pretty much do it however you want to. As long as you add all 4 lines, you should be good to go. Alright, so these are the first 10 problems of the packet, and hopefully soon I can go ahead and post the next 10. But pretty much it's the same idea for all the equations, putting them into the calculator when we're dealing with, for example, numbers 4 and 5, the equations that look like 4 and 5. All it is knowing where to put the extra set of parentheses that you need to. Okay? So when you don't need them, you don't put them. When you need them, mentally you have to tell yourself, I want to add everything. I want to solve everything on the numerator first, then solve everything on the denominator, and then the calculator can divide by itself. Okay? Again, hopefully soon I have more videos up, and don't forget to practice. Thank you.